pleasure to have you here. All of the audience here, we are live from Money 2020 Vegas 2024. It's a pleasure to have all of you here. And today's we're discussing about what is beyond Pix. Sometimes we are used to discuss what's going on in Brazil. Everybody, our foreign friends, they always talk about Pix, and I think maybe they are not in seeing all the potential and what's going on in Brazil. So basically, that's the idea. My name is Gabriel. I'm from Let's Media. We are a content hub in Brazil focused on financial market. And I have here with me Justina Hudson, which is General Manager and VP of Neon, VP of Business Development at Neon. I have Bernardo Brites, its CEO and co-founder of Trace Financing. And also I have Carlos Benitez, which is founder and CEO of BMP. I have three huge players here that operates in Brazil and also globally that can present their perspectives and what's going on and how we can generate value in Brazil and also be a global benchmark, because I'm pretty sure that we're doing a lot of cool stuff that the world can benefit too. So I would like to ask you for make a quick introduction of yourselves and your point of view. So we can start with you, Christina.
I'm working across border payments for almost 30 years now. Always working in big banks and fintechs, and also almost 10 years at Swift. So I've really been seeing all the journey and everything we've been doing in terms of payment innovation, not just in Brazil, but also globally. And now, as you said, I run Latin America for Neon for the past 2 years and a half, building our infrastructure and our presence in Latin America.
Cool. Bernardo, welcome.
Definitely. Thank you. So we do cross-border payments for high-value companies. So Trace Finance basically helps companies like dLocal, Volt, BCB Group, and many others to establish a presence in Brazil or even scale past what they already built. So dLocal is one of the largest payment facilitators globally, not only in Latin America. It's actually great to have a representative of a company that started in Latin America and is now known as one of the largest payment facilitators globally. So I think that Latin America has a lot of innovation on kind of our blood. So I think that Christina is FX beast, right? She has been basically in most amazing companies in cross-border payments, and Carlos has basically shaped what Pix is today with alongside other financial institutions in Brazil. I think that the first few years of Pix were very interesting, and now we actually have hundreds of millions of Pix transactions per day, which is crazy. So very glad to be here with you guys.
Amazing. Welcome, Carlos.
Hello. I'm in the business for 30 years.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I started the first fintech in Brazil, 2000, for car financing. I've been in a financial market since 1993. And we are the larger banking as a service operation in Brazil right now. We work for the larger groups, listed groups, and working basic in credit and transactions. We are not in cross-border. We leave this job for you guys. And we are very focused to build the embedded banking inside companies, inside ecosystems that can manage much better the possibilities to make more money than their core. Their core right now is just for their products, and we are implementing the financial market in each company.
Great to start with all of your background, and I think for people that are listening to us, when you talk about Pix and instant payment, I'm pretty sure that a lot of guys has the impression that we are just creating innovation in Brazil right now, but that's definitely that is not true. There is a huge path along the previous years that everything was being built by central bank and all the players. I would like you to discuss a little bit. So, where are we coming from? So, what is our background in Brazil that just can, I don't know, what happened before so we can promote Pix right now and be totally something maybe unexpected for a lot of people that were watching this around the world.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
I think that's when I saw the cross-border payments and I see the benefits that Pix can bring, not just domestic but worldwide. The reason why I wanted to jump in is that a lot of people speaking globally who are trying to understand Brazil, they ask why is Pix so successful? At least, and I'll see if you guys agree with me, the fact that the central bank is part of the process and leaded the process very consistently, and it didn't start yesterday or 2020 when you had Pix. It started at least in 2013 when you had changes in regulation and when the central bank started building a roadmap by first allowing different institutions to join, not just the central bank became responsible for regulating also payment institutions and opened the market for fintechs. The fact that the central bank allowed new players that were working with e-wallets to first take the time to build the business without needing to ask for an approval and have a license. That also really opened the market for players that we have today, PagSeguros and Nubanks and others. And I think that was all a kind of building the bridge to where we are today when he created the payment method, which Pix is the instant payment based on SWIFT ISO 222, not SWIFT, but using the same ISO that SWIFT uses as well. A lot of people don't realize how the infrastructure was built, leveraging experiences from other markets. So when you look aside, I would say the role of the central bank since the beginning, leading it, understanding the needs from Brazilian market. Many times the needs of how we build is not necessarily the needs of how you will build things in US or in Europe, in other markets. The needs and the roles are different, but definitely having the contribution of the central bank, the opening of the industry, opening to new competitiveness that we didn't have in the past, taking that monopoly of the big banks. It just brought us to the payment method, instant payments, that's called Pix. I love the fact we're having this conversation around beyond Pix, because I was even mentioning that to Carlos yesterday. For us, we are beyond Pix. Instant payments is a given. Only 8% of the industry in Brazil doesn't use Pix, which is, and I'm sure that when we speak again next year, probably will be almost zero that doesn't use Pix. So that shows that for us, the instant payments is a reality. And if you think of real-time payments, we've been doing real-time payments for how many years since we had the TED? 10 years, 20 years? Or even more,
Disagree,
right?
Yeah. What I understand about this is Pix is just a name. And we are just changing the name of a money transfer that you have in Brazil for 25, 26 years. We've been doing this. And why we've been doing this and the other countries around the world doesn't have this kind of real-time payments?
It's crazy.
First of all is the spread. The banking spread is too high in Brazil, so all the traditional financial institutions could invest in technology and conciliations and to produce a better way for the consumers. This is what the beginning. So when the central bank decided to bring another way for this money transfer, that we have this operation between 30 seconds to 20 minutes, you could realize the transactions. And transform this in an instant payment for seconds. What happened was we had an accountability and a structure that could not be having the instant payment. So we need another name. And this another name is Pix. But it was a money transfer. It's the same thing. The money comes from one account to the other account, from one bank to the other bank. It's the same thing. What happened outside in other countries are the spreads of the banking are not too high, so the investment for technology are not too high. And we could have this, and now the lucky of the Brazilians that we can sell to the world, the service. We can sell the possibilities, and a Pix that we call that right now in America is going to be FedNow.
Yes.
It's a money transfer that can use for everything, not just as a money transfer. You can use for conciliations, to portability of the data, not just transferring money. You can make a portability of the data to avoid frauds, and everything is inside this kind of communication that we are having on Pix in Brazil right now.
And FedNow leverages our experience in Brazil. That's a very good example. And I think for two reasons why, just a parenthesis here, that it maybe going slower. To Carlos' point, as we said, we do have our nuances around the spreads and other needs of money movement to being faster and more like real time than maybe US has, and the needs that they have in the industry to make that change. And also the role of the central bank not necessarily leading the process together with the industry, that for different reasons they do it in different ways. There's no right and wrong, but definitely you see that there's a different interest in speed, and they're definitely leveraging our experience to try to make it happen in the US market.
Yeah, I feel like the Central Bank of Brazil was really key in this process. When you think about other markets, you have like Zelle, you have Neon, you have other leading companies that are basically allowing peer-to-peer transfers or B2B transfers through instant rails. But it's usually, right, at least before Pix, it was usually led by the private sector. And in Brazil, the central bank was really pivotal on making that happen. And back to Carlos' points on Pix not only being able to be used for bank transfers and now e-commerce is majority Pix, and but also a funny use case was that people were actually using Pix since it was free for the end user in a lot of banks to actually send messages to other people,
Yeah,
which is crazy.
because it's free.
Yeah.
It's because it's free. Yes.
And that's the
We even got people getting married, right? Sending messages on Pix.
people that were blocked on WhatsApp say, "Hey, I'm gonna send you 1 cent of Pix, so you can see
And
my
you can't
message."
really block it, I guess.
So one thing I think it's interest when you look the previously, I don't know, 15 years, you see the difference on laws by central banks saying the new roles that the companies could have. So we have a lot of new fintechs for the end customers, but also on B2B side. And right now we have a lot of different players in Brazil, and of course there's much thing beyond Pix, but focusing on Pix itself, all the industry is creating different products and solutions. Like we have like Pix credit, we have Pix installments, we have other discussions right now like Pix NFC on the POS. We have a lot of different Pix cousins that the people are developing. Sometimes the regulation comes first, other times the companies create this. I would like you to give this scenario, this picture of what people are building with Pix. Because maybe the people, they are not from Brazil, they don't get that so many stuff is going on with Pix. For example, this case that I mentioned, that people are sending message to each other because Pix is free for the end customer.
I hope they don't learn this, please. That's the only piece I hope
That
they
was a
don't learn
secret.
about.
We cannot say this outside Brazil because they will learn something that nobody knows. I can tell you something about this. We are evaluating all the structure for technology, okay? We are still talking about money here going to money there. It's the same thing, or you are paying something, or you are sending money. The movement is always the same. The only thing that is increasing is the technology. So it's not the bank service, it's the technology. The bank service is still money is here, money is there. It's the same thing. It's like a car financing. The car is not flying yet, but you are financing a car, and you can pay this financing through a link of payments.
It's basically bookkeeping.
And before you had to bring your money to the branch to pay your bill. Right now, you can pay just the link. So when we talk about payments and this money transfer, we've been doing this job since 1996. I think because I have a presentation in Brazil that I showed the authorized net that was acquired by Visa. I think it was 2000. So we are talking the same thing about 25 years. And it's the same thing. What happened is, at that time was the credit card. Right now, we talk about credit card. You're going to have instant payments. You're going to have CBDCs, cryptos, and everything. You're going to have a lot of kinds of payments, but it's the same gateway. It's the same thing. So you are going to have money in other ways, but it's still money. So what is evolution is the technology. So sometimes you have to bring people from Microsoft, Oracle, and Apple to talk about the financial market, not the guys from financial market.
Yes. For example, we have right now, Open Finance is really making his evolution in Brazil as well. And we have a few additions of this technology layer on Pix. And one example that I really like is this. People are calling this smart Pix. It's because if you have your own account, you have a lot of different accounts, but it's all of them in your name. You can create a set of rules. When they are triggered, they can move the money. So maybe when I go to the overdraft, or if I want to, I don't know, this account has the better interest rate for my money that is there. People can create right now this kind of specific rules, and when they are triggered, they can move the money. And I think that's a really cool stuff that's going on up on Pix. So what else are you looking in the market? What else makes your attention on this?
Listening to you both, I have a couple of examples that I think fall into what I see more on the cross-border side, like what could interest companies from the outside to invest in Brazil. First, you've mentioned the open finance, like, again, going back to what we mentioned about the central bank leading, and I did use the word consistently building this roadmap that allowed us to come until where we are with Pix. Open finance is one of those. A lot of people in the beginning thought, oh, but open finance is going to be one thing, Pix is something else. No, they all kind of go to the same strategy. And strategically, as you said, open finance now, if you enable your data to be shared, you can have intelligent Pix, which is allowing a more seamless journey from the consumer perspective, and even maybe fraud control or other making the conciliation process easier on the B2B side. So that's a good example between even if you think of companies that fintechs who are now regulated and are doing the initiation of the payments, they come because you have the open finance allowing them to do that. The companies like Iniciador and others in Brazil who are also doing that. And the Pix, intelligent Pix definitely is one of the solutions. But if we speak about what's in for the American business, the global business, the US, the China companies or Asian providers, whatever company you're talking about, let's get an example like retail or even subscription companies, just to give some practical examples. I like what we're building around Pix International and about the recurring Pix. So the example you gave, I think it facilitates the journey around the seamless on the domestic side. These two examples, I think because they facilitate your journey domestically, like today we don't still have the international Pix, so let's be clear, this is something being built, if I'm not wrong, now for June 2025. But you see providers today, like Neom, you could have a provider who captures the Pix in Brazil, like you use your mobile or Mercado Pago, whatever. You're having that experience done in Argentina. That's some people calling it beyond LATAM, not just beyond Brazil, is the beyond Pix LATAM, where you could, and your customer in Argentina or somewhere else feels that they did an instant payment transaction. But at the end, what he still was doing at this moment is a domestic Pix, where you had providers like Neom behind the scene, still an FX transaction at the end of the day, because you did do the FX transaction, but from the consumer perspective, living in Argentina, he did a Pix outside Brazil. But that's still us, because when we look at the industry, there's a lot of players like we have here today, just the three of us, a lot of players involved that people don't see, don't recognize. These are the invisible players that are allowing the journey from the consumer perspective. But that's still not from a regulatory perspective, we know that there's a lot to come when it comes to having this really becoming an international solution. The other one that I think brings good business from outside to inside is when you look at the recurring Pix. Because example of companies like Netflix and Spotify, coming from working with other fintechs in the payment space, we know how challenging it is. The cost of a credit card, if you have a card that has been declined, then even us, how many times you had a card declined, then if it's not easy for you to just put a new card on Netflix, you just give up and you move to Amazon, right? So for them, this has always been a challenge. That has been having the seamless journey where you can have Pix, paying live and not having to cards decline, waiting for 30 days, knowing what's going to happen, makes the journey smoother. The smoother this journey is from the consumer perspective, and the more we have added, as we said, only 8% of people don't use, and in a country like Brazil, that's quite relevant because many of them don't have access to banking infrastructure, they don't have access to credit. That has also allowed global players to really penetrate the market. You speak about streaming companies, retail companies, subscription companies who now can have a more seamless payment journey because of these new roadmaps and tools for Pix.
So basically you have companies that are international, that they don't have a presence in Brazil, and they can actually have local billing without all the downsides of having local
Exactly.
billing. So one innovation that I would like to highlight from the central bank that was basically over the last year, it has really come along, is the non-resident account. So now companies from abroad, they can actually open non-resident accounts with regulated banks, and they are able to work with Pix locally. So I would like to say that Trace is basically the connecting tissue between a company that enables rails and mass payments globally like Neum, and a direct Pix connector like BNP. So basically, we have this use case which is pushed by the central bank, but then we also have the other POV where you actually have companies that wanted to do an innovation that the central bank actually has scheduled, like the international Pix, but they're not waiting for the central bank to actually release it.
A lot of cases they are anticipating the central bank agenda, right?
Yeah, so now you actually can go to like Miami or to LA, and you go to a store, you go to like a surfboard store, and you can pay with Pix. And on the back end, you actually have BNP receiving the Pix, and then us doing the conversion on the FX, and Neum doing the transfer to the US, for example, to pay the merchant. So I think that for the user, they are still doing Pix. It's as if they were doing Pix in Rio de Janeiro or São Paulo, but on the back end, you have the conversion, you have the direct Pix connection, and you also have the settlements, sometimes mass payment settlements to 200 different merchants, because that specific provider in the US actually on the back end also handles that payment, but they have several merchants there.
And
Yeah, I'm always the guy that criticizes everything, and what happened is, this is the perfect word. The money comes, the money goes, and all the trail and the rails works very well, and the payments works very well. You come the money from Brazil to US, US to Angola, Angola to everywhere, and everybody works. But we have a big problem between these rails. We have the big problem with anti-money laundering. We have a big problem with fraud. And you guys are in transaction operation. We have the opening account before. And the problem sometimes is not the transaction. The problem is in an opening account.
And the know your customers. It is
Yeah,
one of the know your customers.
and there are a lot of tools about KYC and anti-money laundering and compliance, but there is no tool that can monitorize an opening and transactions during the time. Okay, you can open account. Okay, the customer is good. But the customer is good for $10,000. What's happened when he passed $1 million? How long are you going to understand that $1 million is more than the capacity of the customer? Okay, there is a tool there that can do this. No, they can't. So we are building a big infrastructure, but we are not protecting the big infrastructure. This is the problem. I know, because we are a bank, so we have to protect everything and every time. And we are suffering a lot because we've been doing what a fintech does, trying to protect the market, trying to protect the customers, but sometimes we make some wrong things too.
Yeah, I think it's a given.
This is how do you learn how the market's going to happen. And about open banking that we were talking about, I have to learn how US is going, because I was just hearing about MasterCard, what they were doing 2 years ago, and I have to be more prepared to talk about this. But the model that the Brazilian central bank did, it's a good move, but not enough. Because what happened is, they started with the model of Great Britain, okay? And the model of Great Britain is, you have an account, you can transfer your data to another account in another bank. First of all, if you have to ask a bank to transfer your data to another bank, it's because the data is not yours, it's the bank.
yeah,
So
I have the same feeling by principles
yeah.
that at the end of the day.
and it's a big discussion.
Yeah.
And I said that we're gonna have like a AWS storage, we're gonna have like a Google storage that's gonna reflect your data from your banking informations, your personal informations, your family informations, and everything. You're gonna have this in a storage that you manage. And if you need for something, for a doctor, for a bank, for to prove your capacity of payments, you're gonna just push the button on Google and gonna send your data to the bank that's gonna use this. So this, I think, could be the answer, not the answer. Maybe I'm not a tech guy, so.
But the open finance, it's
Yeah.
true what you said, and I do agree with you, Carlos, what you said about let's be critical about the challenges. And I think it puts us on the regulatory component. That's why I even opened a big remark around what we're doing is this PIX is still us fine. As you said, sometimes we're bringing the solution while it's still being built by or regulated by the central bank as a response of business opportunities. Let's see what comes in June, but there's still a lot of window for, we have to be very scrutinizing. The open finance, I do believe that it's in the right direction as well. We're still timid. Maybe we could have been a little bit faster in the process, but I think it's already seen some commonalities with what's being built also in the payment method. And you gave examples of when we speak about this international PIX, I see it more to the smaller players. That's why I even gave an example of a e-wallet with the Mercado Pago, more the retail business, the small value tickets than the big ones, B2B, which I think the challenge is even bigger. And I don't know if you want to touch that, Gabriel, but a little bit of how we have been framed from a regulatory perspective, because I think everything we're saying, if we're not very well-rounded, and that's why I also mentioned at the beginning about the central bank role from the beginning being leading all these discussions. Another innovation that we didn't touch was banking as a service, that we've seen what happened in the U.S., the challenges the U.S. faced, and we are trying to really scrutinize and make sure that the way we're building things are very much in line with the bank, knowing it's know your customer, knowing how the money laundering, who's who, no nested flow. So I do believe that we're really trying to keep an eye that from a payments perspective, I do believe, and I don't know if Carlos, if you agree with that from a banking perspective, but I do believe that was a good example of Brazil trying to keep a solution that definitely it's already part of the industry, won't change. It's already part of how we do business from now on, but keeping a close eye not to see what happened in other markets.
Actually, I would like to, just using our time as well, but I would like to fast forward from 10 years from now and just make a quick exercise of, not exactly of how this market is going to be, but what are the main things that gonna have like influence on what this market could be? Because in Brazil, we're talking about instant payments, open finance. We have the CBDC with the drag scene discussing. I don't know how this can be like 10 years from now. We have a lot of discussion on regulations on bank as a services, and we have a lot of other stuff going on. How you imagine that this market could be 10 years from now, and what are the main drivers? What can change? So I would like to have your perspective on this.
I'm old, but I can answer. I had to ask to my daughter about this because she's 13 right now, so she knows much better than me. But I can tell you something. We are always talking about the product and how the instant payment is going to work, how the remittance is going to work. No. It's not this question. The question is how the consumer will be their behavior. How we can originate operations, how we can manage this. So first of all, we have to put technology on the side and start to think about a bank. You can purchase technology from the market, but you have to think about a bank. If you talk about banking as a service, it's a bank, it's not a tech. Maybe in the US, you have a more regulated and a stable economy, but a banking as a service will have a behavior different in each ecosystem. This is the evolution of the operation. I can tell you, a truck driver, he needs an insurance, yes, but he needs tires. He needs to buy tires in a good price to have a logistics to deliver to them because they have to purchase tires 4 times per year. So this is what he needs. And he needs credit to purchase these tires. This is what he needs. Okay, the insurance is lateral. The main operation is the tire. So this will forward all the traffic that we have in the banks, in bank branches, in apps, internet banking, to move inside the companies because they are much more interesting than the banks. The relationship between a customer and a bank, and relationship a customer and a company that he wants to use frequently is more friendly. So maybe the transformation will be the delivery of the financial products and service will be done by companies, not by banks.
I never see someone that has a bank tattooed. But I
Yeah.
already see like Apple. People do tattoos from Apple, for example. But that's interesting perspective. How the consumer will behave 10 years from now, and what are your perspectives?
I feel like we always highlight on the Pix innovation the instant part of it, but I would say a big part of how it scaled and how we had a lot of companies building around Pix was because it was 24/7. So having not only the instant payments, a lower cost to it because that was like 10 BRL and now Pix is, free to the final user, to the end user. You wouldn't be able to have people transacting 20 reais if the TAD was 10 reais, right? Now it's free. So that's why we actually see millions and millions of Pix, even billions, right, per month. But the 24/7 aspect of it actually allows for people to fund their trading accounts at any point. It allows people to actually react to global events and actually be able to trade at a trading firm at like 3 a.m., for example. Because if you have Pix, if you can fund your accounts, and then you also have the instant payments through Neum, through Trace, to actually fund your trading firm abroad, you would be able to trade with your Japanese broker at 3 a.m. in Brazil. So I really think that, not even 10 years from now, but 2-3 years from now, we will actually have an interconnected global system where it doesn't need to be necessarily instant from end to end, but you could actually have Pix, which is instant, you fund it, and then you're actually able to transact with a company in Korea because it's 3 minutes there to actually settle. I just tested it, but they actually are able to transact that at like 9 p.m. So having that aspect of, the time zone difference isn't a problem anymore. You can actually transact between China and Brazil or Japan and Brazil or even like Europe, even though it's 2 a.m. in one country and in the other it's trading time. That actually allows you to have a much more interconnected system globally, and that actually makes a lot of business globally a lot easier. Because when you think about an exporter from Asia that's sending goods to Brazil, they wouldn't send the goods unless they receive the payments. And sometimes that really comes to being trading hours here in Brazil or trading hours here there in China for them to actually be able to confirm the payments. So I really feel that a big push that we are doing now is allowing companies to settle instantly, no matter where they are actually sending the money. So as long as we receive the money and we don't have the counterparty risk because they already funded the account in Brazil, we could actually settle to them through like FedNow or FedWire or even Japan because it's already in our control. So I really think that companies will try to bridge domestic rails abroad using Neum, using the instant payment rails from the governments as well. And I really think that B2B payments globally will get increasingly easier because Brazil, as you guys can agree, is probably one of the highest regulated countries as far as cross-border payments goes. And we had a lot of innovation towards other companies that were, doing B2B payments globally. But there's still such a long way to go. When you do a Pix in Brazil through a business, it's still a lot easier, a lot faster than actually doing FX. So FX still has a big KYC ML risk because you're actually transacting cross-border. So you actually have bigger risks than just transacting locally because the money will be in other jurisdiction, right? But as long as you also have a presence in that other jurisdiction, I feel like you can kind of offset the risk as well. So yeah, I'm super excited for what's to come. I think that the Central Bank of Brazil definitely puts Brazil in a way to innovate compared to other central banks. And we'd love to know your perspective as well, Christina.
So, coming from the cross-border space, I definitely love the fact that we have a very regulated central bank and a very regulated market. The FX business should continue to have its proper regulations. So I think that's what it puts us on a safe place. So I will still keep my hat of keeping everything very well regulated. So if we look at the future, I would say I'm completely in agreement with the mix of what you all guys all said. First, consumer behavior. Yes, more and more it's about the behavior, not just being consumer-centric, but understanding how the generations and how people now have moved to digital, becoming more digital. And the consumer behavior, it's a key in addition to, as you said, keeping technology aside, you have to understand the end consumer. I would only add the component of having more and more, in addition to seamless payment methods and more instant payments around the world. So we didn't speak about interoperability, but there's a lot of initiatives in place, like Nexus with the BIS and others, which I think in due time, because it's not an easy task and it's been, I'm not going to say like Carlos saying that he's old and he asked his daughter. I said, okay, I'm not going to say I'm old, but let's say I've been doing the same for a while and ask also my nephew and niece. But if we look at been doing this, I remember 20 years ago when the stock exchanges were trying to do a similar initiative of having all the exchanges, like you have a SEPA in Europe, and it just didn't work in Latin America because of the challenge of different regulations, and it wasn't a technology challenge. When you look here at what we're trying to do with the central bank leading other initiatives, and we're trying to see some initiatives in Colombia and Mexico for instant payments that still haven't really launched. Interoperability and making sure we can build a sound infrastructure regionally, I think it's a trend. Going back to the need of not just real time, but also instant payments. And we didn't really tackle, just to wrap up, around no longer, and I think it goes back, Carlos, what you were saying, compliance, risk management, know your customer, understanding the payment flow. It's not just about the journey and it being seamless and being transparent. From the beginning of the process, you need to feel safe and really keep focusing on fraud. If you think about 20 years ago, we were speaking about payments and effects being done in 7 days. Now we reduced to 3 days if you think about the SWIFT flow. If you think about NEOM flows, and even now SWIFT partnering with fintechs to do it real time, and we do instant payments in real time. And all of these players are really now asking, every time a global provider, a global company comes to us and looks at the markets they want to invest, they ask us, how you do your compliance? How can we protect ourselves in regards to know your customers? With banks and which partners are you working with? I agree with you. I never seen someone putting a T-shirt of a bank and they say, oh, how cool is your bank, like Apple Pay? But at the end of the day, they really look what's your robust infrastructure you have to build that solid somewhere they can trust that. And more the regulation will make us, the more we build these banking as a service, other embedded finance, or whatever you want to call it, the more I think the regulation will help us have a more transparent process and understanding what are the players, who are the partners. You as a consumer, we gave the example of the guy who was in Argentina and suddenly saw his deal being done instantly, but he doesn't know all the players that are behind. We need to make sure these players are also accountable for the part of the process they're responsible. We can't have a player doing a flow that seems that he's the banking as a service, when at the end of the day, that responsibility should be at the bank. So you have to have very clear roles and responsibilities and accountability, which I think we're moving towards that. And no longer think that compliance will be, oh, that's just the boring part of the... And I don't work in compliance, guys, so I'm not trying to promote that. But be clear, I am on the business side. And last but not least, I heard something in Mexico that I loved. A guy was speaking actually about the importance of consumer behavior. And he said, the only thing we all know is that we just don't know. When someone asked him about the future, he said, the only thing we know is that we just don't know what's ahead of us. So I think that's a little bit of also, we're kind of guesstimating, but at the end of the day, we really don't know.
My idea, I see that we are heading towards a direction that we are increasing the competition. So we are facilitating for the companies to compete and innovate in Brazil. If you look to the past 5 years, the credit concentration just drops a lot, maybe by 30 or 40%.
That's
I
great
can- I
news.
can
We
help you
have
with
to
this
reduce
information.
that concentration, guys.
But
We need
it was
to
a
reduce
huge decrease,
I
right?
can help you. Sometimes the media confound yourself and everything. Okay, we had like that's okay. We had like a 80% concentration in the big banks, big 5 banks. Okay, 80% concentration, and then they drop off to 72%. This 8%, it's not because the market is having another capillarity. It's because the money from the banks are being distributed by the other sides. We are having money in investment funds and everything. So these investment funds are building infrastructures for the financial market to deliver this operation. So I think it's not too high. There are a lot of big banks that they were outside of the investment funds and the securitization market, and now they have big checks for this other kinds of operations. So I can guarantee that the concentration still exists.
Still in the same.
Yeah,
So it's
can
still
guarantee
sourced
this.
from
Yeah.
the big banks, right?
Yeah,
Because,
I can guarantee. But we have 2% of the structure that were delivered by securitization that has been growing up 20 to 30% yearly. And it's possible that these numbers are going to increase the next years. So if we can be 10%, it's a lot. It's a lot. We are multiplying per 5, per 6, the total of the market outside banks, traditional banks. These are very big. And we are expecting to have 25% until 2030, 2032, outside big banks. Not that the big bank doesn't have the money inside the operation, but it's possible to 25% be outside.
That's a lot of value to be captured. I'm pretty sure that we have more means to do this, all of this competition in Brazil. Maybe we can use like different roles, regulated roles. We can create different operations. We have big guys like Google in Brazil that can be a payment institution and now using data and everything to work towards open financing. Maybe a few companies, they are more afraid of this kind of guy operating than maybe the other fintechs. I'm pretty sure that we have more competition in the near future. And I would like to, we are heading to the end, and I'm going to leave you to give a quick message for our audience. And I would like to thank you all of your participation here.
Feel comfortable to invest in Brazil, to invest in Latin America, to make business there. We are so creative that's also what made us so innovative, and we just give just a glance over the potential what can be done in the payment industry. And definitely everyone knows that if there's one thing that Brazil is good, now I'm not sure I can speak about soccer no longer, but at least I can keep track that the Brazilian payment system
Soccer is not going well. Very well.
not going well. So I think again, going back to my past life, I could say that, but now definitely we can still speak about the Brazilian payment and financial market.
I can give you insight. We are providing or make a move to integrate Pix and FedNow to work between U.S. and Brazil. We are going to have this in a real-time or instant payment structure. We believe the next semester for the beginning of the year.
Great news.
Yeah, so I'm really bullish on instant cross-border payments. You're bridging liquidity pools domestically in Brazil and then in the US. We also see big value in it. So as Christina said, I think that you should do business in Brazil. A lot of companies are already doing business in Brazil, but they usually have a roundabout way of doing it. And the central bank actually now allows you to open your own non-resident accounts there. So you can open your non-resident accounts with Trace. we can help you get access to Pix with partners, and also allow you to have FX APIs so you don't have the currency risk. Because I think that a lot of the worries about working with other currencies, moreover, in Brazil, where you have like USD BRL, which fluctuates a little bit, is basically having currency exposure. So we are very bullish on making kind of a synthetic USD account in Brazil, where foreign companies can actually receive Pix, but as soon as they receive it, it's converted to dollars. So you're always getting $12 for that subscription, for example. So come do business in Brazil. I think that's the environment is a lot better now. You have Neum, you have BNP, you have Trace. I think that's, if you compare it to 5 years ago where we didn't have Pix, we didn't have the whole infrastructure that we currently have, it's a lot more welcoming. And also we have a big population as well. So it's definitely a big unlock.
That's a huge market. I think there's much more thing to understand. We are really open to keep this conversation going on during the show or after that. I couldn't be more grateful to have you here. It's a pleasure not only to discuss with the brilliant minds of Brazil, but also doing this in the middle of the conference here in Vegas. So thank you, everyone. We see you on the next episode from Let's Media. Keep watching, keep listening, and share with all our friends. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. See you guys.